Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Junk Be Gone, Phoenix Conversions.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into our show. I welcome you, as does my Mike Gundy mullet. Sooner or later, I've got to get to the barber. Appreciate you being with us. We're going to have a packed house today in terms of topics. A lot of good UT stuff, a lot of good news. Well, we'll discuss how good it is, but looks like good news. Matter of fact, let's show you what's coming up on today's show. First of all, we're going to talk about good news from the NCAA possibly coming this week. Impact on UT schedule regarding crowds. Top 25 future rankings. Does ESPN view Tennessee as a future top 25 team? Recruiting 101. I get a lot of questions about the signing class. How many guys can UT sign? Can they back count? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We'll take a look at that. We'll also compare their numbers to some past SEC classes, tell you how much they still got a ways to go to climb into the top 5 nationally or finish up there at the end of this signings period. Best college football programs of the playoff era. We're going to break that down for you and tell you where Tennessee ranks. And then most memorable UT pass plays that we've ever seen. So packed show. First segment brought to you by my friends at Phoenix Conversions. As businesses come back to life, it's time to upgrade and outfit your work vehicle or your fleet of work vehicles. Everything from bed accessories, toolboxes and racks, video systems, lifts, leveling kits. You need it, they do it. Phoenix Conversions, they've been doing it since 1987, I believe. PhoenixConversions.com to learn more. All right. And when I need to learn more, I turn to the two guys with me here today. We have right over here Bob Hodge, longtime sports writer in this town, of course, longtime panelist. You've been at my right on the show since the first show. Welcome back.
Always at your right.
Good. Turkey, yes, always at my right. And turkey season's over, so it's good to have you back.
Yep.
And right down there we have Jimmy Himes from WNML AM and FM. You can hear him Monday through Friday from 3 to 7 on Sports Talk, and then his blogs on their website. Jimmy, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. No one can say for sure when college football will return, how it will return, what form the crowds are going to be like, or anything like that. However, multiple sources have told Sports Illustrated that the NCAA Division I Council, that's 40 college athletics decision makers from different schools, they're going to vote on Wednesday on whether or not to lift their nationwide moratorium on on-campus summer activities. Okay, now, if they do it, it would open a path for student athletes to return to campus as soon as June 1st. Obviously, state and local issues are still going to play into that. The individual schools, the conferences, they make those decisions. But if you're looking for positives, I did not expect us to be at this point where the NCAA could possibly vote on Wednesday to open it up for student athletes to be back in June. I didn't see that coming. Still may not happen. But if you're looking for positives, I think that's pretty good for the sports fan psyche.
I think it would be a great thing for the sports fan psyche. I think it'd be a good thing for the athletes too. I mean, it would be a good thing for the coaches. It would be a good thing for this segment of our society to be able to start getting back to normal again. And I really hope that this happens. I mean, is it going to raise some questions? Sure it is. But I really hope that they'll allow these guys to start coming back. Now, do you have all 120 of your football players back on campus on day one? Probably not. So maybe you even have a little bit of a controllable situation, but I think it really is good news. Hope it happens.
Well, from a mental standpoint, I hope it happens. From a physical standpoint, I don't know. I'm still in that, scientists say this, doctors say this, politicians say this. I'm still all over the place. Jimmy, but I'm with you from a mental thing. I like any steps toward normalcy. Jimmy, the SEC is also going to have a vote on Friday, or a meeting on Friday to discuss possibilities.
Yeah, they are. They're going to, on May the 22nd, they're going to vote about whether or not to allow the student athletes back on campus. And I've seen 2 different dates, June 1 or June the 15th. Interestingly, I read where Philip Fulmer, Tennessee's athletic director, was the only one that cast a dissenting vote about that. I don't know what all his concerns are, but I do think that gives you a glimmer of hope. But it's also interesting to see what Lincoln Riley of Oklahoma says. He says, we got one shot at this. And I interpret that to mean that if you reopen the campuses to the student athletes and then you have another outbreak, then all heck's going to break loose. So I think that's what he's saying. We need to make sure when we open it, we don't have any setbacks. But there's no assurance of that.
No, there's no. As a matter of fact, you had the NCAA's chief medical officer come out this past week and say, here are the things that will need to be done to open this back up and have sports again. But remember, if you just have a handful of kids on a team test positive, it could shut down a team for 2 weeks in the middle of a season, if not longer. So all that's still hanging over it. But I do think it is a step in the right direction mentally to start going in this way. It's interesting that Philip Fulmer, the former football coach, now again, he's casting a vote with input from his president and his chancellor, of course. But it's interesting that he would be the dissenting vote in that, where you would think a football coach would be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's get back out there.
Maybe Jeremy Pruitt saying recruiting's going so well, we don't want
do it.
to. We don't want to open anything up. Let's keep.
But
this going.
I think that's a positive, though, that Philip Fulmer. It shows me that he's not just
Rubber
you got the
stamping
ex-jock
it, yeah.
athletic director. I like that.
I have a ton of questions about that, though. If you reopen and bring the kids back, are you only bringing back the ones who live off campus, who have apartments, or do you open up some on-campus space for them? Yeah. If you don't, does that mean that, okay, we're bringing back in 60 guys who have apartments? The rest of you got to stay at home. How are you going to feed them? I mean, there's a lot of questions that come in. I hope they do it. I think it would be a great thing. But then you start going down through all the, you start peeling the onion. Okay, they got to have food someplace. They got to have a place to live.
The trainers,
et cetera, et cetera.
You're bringing in all, yeah. I mean, you're not just going to bring student athletes.
Well, you got to bring in the people who do the laundry.
Well, yeah, you have, and you're basically, I hate to use the word endangering, but you're endangering those people's families as well. That's the thing everybody's talked about, these pro guys. Well, just take the players and put them in Las Vegas and they can take their families. Okay, do the referees get to take their families? Does the guy who runs the shot clock, does he get to bring his family?
Does the single guy who only has a girlfriend get to bring his girlfriend?
Exactly. It's a long line of questions. Go ahead.
I was going to add one other thing about that. It's on NCAA vote. What if it's safe in Knoxville but not in Austin? So are they going to say, okay, UT Knoxville, you can open, but Texas and Austin, you need to wait?
But don't you almost have to allow something like that to happen? Or do you wait until the very last state signs off and says, we're getting back to normal? I think you almost have to allow it state by state. What are your state rules?
I do too. I'm just curious if that's what they're going to do.
I think all this is basically them stepping aside and saying, you make the call.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. And I'm not so sure they will for what you're saying, because whether you like the way they do it or not, one of the things the NCAA tends to focus on is let's keep the playing field even. And a lot of us say, well, Alabama is not going to be recruiting with Appy State. They're different anyway. Well, let's keep everything the same. Well, if you go by that, then this won't pass, because they're going to look at it and say, well, this would be an advantage to some schools that can open when other schools can't. Very quickly, I thought this was interesting. Let me give you a quote from Gordon Gee. Don't know if you remember him, the former head of Vanderbilt. Do we have that? There it is. He used to be at Vanderbilt when they went from they turned their athletic department into an intramural sport. He said this, now he's at West Virginia. We are going to play football in the fall. I really do believe that, even if I have to suit up. I've got my ankles taped up. I am ready to go in. Interesting comment from a guy who we knew when he was at Vanderbilt, it was all academics. At West Virginia, it's a little different story. Now he's Mr. Pro, Mr. Pro Football, Pro Sports, I should say. Not professional sports, but pro in terms of being positive. That came out wrong. Anyway, you've got guys like that in West Virginia saying, hey, we're going to play, let's do it. And then you got folks on the West Coast who are like, we can't open up the city until 2021. So it's going to be interesting. And that would be why I think the NCAA may punt on this one on Wednesday, that they may vote it down, because the playing field, as much as we'd like for it to be even, isn't.
Another quick stat on that, the ACC encompasses 10 states, right? 5 of those states are still under lockdown. No other conference has more than 2 states under lockdown. So so while I don't know if the Pac-12 is going to play, the ACC's in a little bit of jeopardy because of that.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Very good. When we come back, if crowds are allowed back and they're small at the start of the season and they grow at the end of the season, which that's not how I would project it. That's the way that a lot of these pro teams and college folks are trying to project it. If that happened, what impact would that have for UT in terms of their home games, the road games, the crowd support? Come on back, we'll discuss.